Hello, ladies. I am back for day 4. Another one of my favorite topics. Every day it just gets, we're layering here. So we're already on day 4. Every day we're layering upon the day before, building our momentum, fueling your feminine radiance, helping you, kind of giving you those practices and those doorways and those portals and access points to really have that more direct, immediate, easier kind of on speed dial access to the frequency of your feminine radiance. So bear with me, I'm having a bit of an allergy attack today and yesterday. So if I look a little pale and washed out, if I sneeze and have to excuse myself to blow my nose, that may occur. I think I have sneezed a couple times in the last 2 videos. So I am so excited to be here with you, though. I'm just not at my super peppy, zestful, sparkly self. But it's always a good time to rock our feminine radiance. So I'm here to rock my feminine radiance, even in the face of my allergies. So today, yes, as I entitled today in the post you saw earlier, I'm just getting my pleasure expansion, and really clearing the blocks to our magnetism. So let's see, the first day, I'm just reviewing it for myself and for all of you tuning in, which hopefully you're listening in progression, in sequence, because there is a deliberate design, as I have been reminding you. First day we tapped into kind of that high level view of what is the frequency of radiance. How does a woman who's embodying her feminine radiance actually show up? What is that experience like to live in her skin, to live and see the eyes, see the world, her life through her eyes? Day 2, oh my gosh, I'm already forgetting. Day 2, that's right. Embodied sufficiency and awakening our inner oracle. So powerful, so juicy. And then yesterday was really courting our desires back to life, breathing life back into them, and really befriending perhaps what has been a contentious relationship, kind of that push-pull, love-hate with our desires. So today you'll understand why this is coming next: pleasure expansion and clearing the blocks to our magnetism. And there are so many entry points. This is one of the topics I am so passionate about, is pleasure expansion. I am picking one of those entry points today. I did loads of master classes on this topic all of last year. So I did a couple of 5-day challenges around this. I think I did a 7-day challenge around this. So if this is a topic that ignites you and sparks you, there's more where this came from. And I will be talking more about this. But what's so important, why I chose the approach I'm going to take today, is because unless it's kind of meeting us where we are, because you'll kind of get it as I'm going, but there are reasons, it's basically what I'm trying to say is why your pleasure potential may not be as expansive as it could be is for a very good reason. And without knowing those reasons, it's very challenging to transition and transform out of that without having the consciousness of, where we may bump up against those upper limits and those short-circuiting mechanisms we're only going to get so far in our transformation. So that is why I chose the approach that we're going to dive into today. All right, enough of that. So starting with really, and again, there's a lot I could say about magnetism, but essentially going back, kind of picking up where we left off yesterday with the emergence and the surfacing and the arising of our desires. Remember, what I've been saying is that we chase certain experiences, certain desires, certain objects, certain, changes in our conditions because of the feeling that we think it will give us. We believe that we will feel better. We believe we'll feel more pleasure, more happiness, more joy, more fulfillment, more abundance, more turned on, more juicy, more alive. When we get that thing, when we arrive at that ultimate destination, when we reach that goal, when we fulfill that desire, or when our partner stops doing this or starts doing this, you fill in the blank, your version of that. But it's really the other way around. The feeling inside of ourselves is what will generate the experience, which will then reflect back the nature of that original feeling. I'm forgetting where I recently said this. Maybe it was in my very first intro video, but essentially, that was a weird pronunciation. Everything we seek it for the feeling that we believe having it will give us. But none of those feelings live out there. They live in us. The potential for them lives within us. And yet, when we're kind of living on default, they're dormant. Because we're living in that, we're kind of defaulting to victim, waiting for something to happen out there to make our lives worth living, forgetting that actually we're misplacing our power and projecting it all out there. So this is, and again, there's a lot more I could say about magnetism, but that's just kind of the context that we're working with. I want to keep that brief because our real focus on today is looking at basically I'm saying all this to make the point that in order for us to get anything that we want, all the desires that you may have started getting in touch with yesterday, any change or improvement you want to see and experience and initiate in your life, we have to be allowed to feel good, to feel better than we do now, to expand our capacity for pleasure and well-being, if that is to come into manifest form. And yet, this is all kind of adapted, or I'm referencing the book, you may well know it, by Gay Hendricks. It's a very old book, but it's called, wow. I guess it's called The Big Leap. Yeah, it's all on upper limiting. It just blanked out. I think that's what allergies do for you. The Big Leap, yeah. So based on that premise of upper limiting, we all have a thermostat setting that determines how much love, how much success, how much creativity, how much abundance, how much pleasure, how much turn on, you fill in the blank, we will allow ourselves to enjoy and receive and experience. Basically, every area of our life has a set point, whether it's love, whether it's physical health, whether it's money, whether it's personal creative expression, whether it's success, whether it's opportunities. And we all have a limited tolerance for feeling good, for our lives going well in general. And that's a thermostat setting that got programmed very early in childhood. And how it shows up is going to depend on what your original core wounding, like the flavor of your core wounding, the flavor of your, the atmosphere, your childhood, the atmosphere that you grew up in. So you may, as you're listening to me, start to recognize, wow, so if getting what I want, if fulfilling my desires requires me to actually generate the feelings that are an energetic, frequential match to that desire, yes, then I would have to be able to elevate those feelings within myself, which means I would have to give myself permission. I'd have to expand my capacity to feel better and better and better, right? And I may not feel as though I have access to that. Like, you can start to see the gap that we come up against. So anytime, what this looks like in the world of upper limiting, according to the theory of upper limiting, anytime we get close to something that resembles that wounding, our system is going to go on high alert to keep us within that boundary that we know we can survive. And once this is programmed, this thermostat setting really holds us back from having and enjoying all the love, all the wealth, the abundance of all kinds, the level of connection and intimacy and creativity that could be available for us. Because whenever we start, oh, hello, welcome, Pamela. So lovely to have you. Whenever we start pushing up against this unconscious limit and come close to hitting that threshold, when things start to feel a little too good, according to our conditioning, we're going to inadvertently do something to derail that line of experience, that positive energy, that growth of positive energy. Pamela, feel free to comment how this is landing for you, anything that sparks for you, any questions that comes up for you as I'm going. We may start, some of those, I don't love the word sabotage. I have another interpretation of that, but that's kind of the common way of labeling this, where we might turn on ourselves. We might start going after thoughts or creating, sort of the downward spiral, the negative thinking, creating stories in our mind that start to bring us down to make us feel bad. And it can happen so fast that you'll think that there's no choice, that it's happening to you. But there's actually a refractory period there if we were to create that space between the trigger and the response. Or we might do things that stop the positive momentum that's trying to emerge. We might create a conflict with someone, with a loved one. We might start to beat up on ourselves and judge ourselves. We might get into a car accident or some unexpected bill, or we might get sick, physically ill. Something that's going to bring us back down within the bounds of our limited tolerance that feels more familiar than the really good, juicy, yummy, amazing, ecstatic, blissful, delightful pleasure that lives in our desires. Make sense? So various reasons why this might happen is because of what I may mentioned yesterday, because we may not feel worthy of feeling any better than we have been based on our track record. We might fear that our success or our happiness will result in abandonment. We may fear that shining our light, our radiance, more brightly than we have been is somehow a crime, or that success brings more burdens, or that it's not okay or it's not safe to be big, bright, and shiny and happy. I'm going to go into why that is now. So this really comes down to, in neurolinguistic programming, they talk about ecology and how our will, our conscious mind says, I want X, Y, Z. I want this much happiness. I want this much money. I want this much love and pleasure and fun and success. And this level of expansion and joy. But we have these based on our upbringing, based on our wounding, based on our family patterning. We are carrying unconscious commitments of loyalty to that context that come in to block us and pull us backwards, saying you have to stay here in order to be safe and in order to survive. They refer to this as the rubber band effect. I pop into the comments if you can relate to this, that push-pull effect where you're going for something and then you experience that rubber band effect of only be able to get so far when you're following through on a vision or pursuing a dream or attempting to fulfill a desire or elevate your frequency or your quality of living, of experiencing. So another way of recognizing this is that the experiences that we have learned to survive become the conditions upon which our survival depends. In other words, the limiting belief that we come up against repeatedly, like we're all going to have sort of that go-to speed dial limiting belief that's the most predominant. That limiting belief, whether it's, I'm not good enough, or I risk losing love if XYZ happens. Whatever limiting belief is sort of your go-to belief was yesterday's solution, as in the ticket to your survival way back when. A lot of this depends on what was modeled for you. If you think back to what was the happiness, the feel good, the pleasure, the joy, the fun, and the play set point of your caretakers, of your mother, of your father. How happy, how fulfilled, how abundant did you witness them being? Like how good were they allowed to feel? Now, as a little child, one of the unconscious ways in which we source our safety, our love, and our belonging is to make sure we match that we don't go below or above what that familial set point was, because that would threaten the status quo, or so we fear. It risks abandonment, it risks rejection, it risks loss of any of those three things: love, safety, or belonging. So what this comes down to is that the end result is that this makes being okay or feeling good or having a simple baseline of well-being and pleasure and fulfillment and success not okay. In other words, not safe. In other words, a threat to ourselves or a threat to someone else whose love and approval we are very attached to and depend on at that age. So I know this is very cerebral, and yet there's just no, I mean, it's just essential that you have this information, and I'll tell you why. Let's see if Pamela is commenting. Okay. I'm assuming you're following along, Pamela. I know I'm like downloading a lot of information. So I would suggest re-listening to this audio at least twice through. So here we're going to get into more specifics, and here's where you can do even more personalized self-reflection based on what stands out for you. There are 4 hidden barriers in how this shows up, and I'm going to add a 5th one myself. The first one is the beliefs that create these energetic set points that come from our original wounding. One is the feeling of being fundamentally flawed. Something is wrong with me. There's something really wrong with me so that I can't XYZ. Or there's something wrong with me so XYZ will happen. I'm at risk for this to happen, or this can't happen. The fear is if you did make a commitment to live full out, you would fail. If you did go after your desire, you wouldn't get it. So you might as well not bother. So at least if you fail smaller, not big. So you're preferring the smaller version, the small scale fail versus the large scale fail. This all falls under, if you can relate to that feeling of feeling fundamentally flawed. I'm broken, I'm not enough, anything in that flavor. The second option, we all probably have a little bit of each of them, but one is going to stand out to you. The other one is the hidden barrier is disloyalty and abandonment. So the limiting belief that becomes the upper limit is I cannot expand. I cannot be too shiny. I cannot be too expressive or too sparkly because I will end up alone. I will betray my roots. I will leave behind people from my past. So it's the fear that who you allow yourself to be in the world, the degree to which you give yourself permission to expand, will somehow create an abandonment or betrayal on your home, your family, your tribe, your community. So that creates a fear of success. So you stop yourself from just being too big, having too much success, feeling too happy. Or you might feel a tremendous sense of guilt if you do get what you want, if you do achieve your goal, your desire, the success. You'll either feel guilty or you won't allow yourself to fully enjoy it. Sound familiar? So start to recognize what resonates with you. All right. Excuse me, I have to adjust on my ball here. Third one, believing that more success, more fulfillment, more of all things goodness is going to bring a bigger burden. So the real, like the original face of this is the feeling and the belief that I am a burden. Who can relate to that? If you, like a child who's born, say, who wasn't wanted, could very well have that feeling of I'm a burden. If the parents actually, if it was an accidental pregnancy, for example, I'm using an extreme example, but to demonstrate this, but if a child is born into a family that wasn't planning on having another child, they may very well take on that feeling of being a burden. So any growth, any version of more goodness is somehow going to just amplify and compound that feeling of burden because it is emerging from within themselves and their core feeling is of being a burden. Make sense? Two more here. And again, these are all the barriers to feeling good. These are all different versions of how and why we may have this upper limit and why we will short circuit our expansion, our radiance. Just bringing us back to where we're going today. So the crime or the fear of outshining, kind of like the tall poppy syndrome. The belief is if I it's the fear of outshining mom or dad or other loved ones who, close in our immediate family. It's the fear of stealing attention from family or loved ones. So it turns into, how dare I be more healthy, more happy, more wealthy, more bright and shiny or fulfilled than him or her. So sort of like I mentioned above, we don't let ourselves go below or beyond that which was modeled for us. Otherwise, it'll be a crime and we will outshine and make someone else feel bad. So it becomes a threat to our love, safety, and belonging. So my addition to this is another strategy that's going to show up to short circuit and to serve as an upper limit is all the ways, and which is sort of a result of all of the above, but also some of the points I was referring to the last couple of days of any time that when we are living in a chronic state of judgment, of shame, of rejection of any aspect of ourselves, any aspect of our lives, this negative internal conversation of I'm a failure, I'm not lovable, I'm unworthy of my desires because XYZ, I'm not good enough, I'm not okay, there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with my life, I've missed the boat, it's too late, I must not have what it takes, something is missing. Your entire system, your physiology, your psychology, your emotional system is not going to be available for joy, for change, for growth, for anything new to come in or to flow out. So any expansion or goodness of any kind. And this is what will obstruct your essence, your joy, your happiness, your fulfillment, and your feminine radiance. Why I'm sharing these 5, everything I've said so far, and those 5 hidden barriers is because, and why I chose this approach today, is that transformation can only occur when we appreciate the positive intention of the present state before attempting to revise it. So what this brings me to is that one of the key essential ingredients to embody more of our feminine radiance is to step into self-forgiveness. Going through that layer of healing and self-forgiveness is what will allow you to receive more of all things goodness, and really allow yourself to truly have and receive and let in what it is you have been desiring. So it's appreciating that everything that has brought you to where you are now, as frustrating and disappointing and exasperating and contracting as it may have presented itself, we want to recognize the brilliance and the wisdom and the positive intention that it was serving, which was your survival. It was your safety. When it comes to our conditioning, when it comes to our nervous system, it's important to remember that its priority is safety and survival, not freedom and pleasure. So this is where transformational work comes in. And that's the work I do with my clients. Because left to our own devices, we will always revert back to the old momentum. So I love to share this quote by a Zen teacher, Charlotte Joko Beck. She says, "Our failure to know joy is directly related to our inability to forgive." So I like to translate that into like our failure to know joy is directly related to our inability to forgive ourselves, to forgive and accept ourselves and everything that has happened up until now. Like I said yesterday, the degree to which you will allow yourself to embody your feminine radiance is the degree to which you will allow yourself to accept, unconditionally, wholly, totally, fully accept yourself and your life just as they are right now. That is the baseline from which transformation can then occur. All right. Deirdre, hello. I had a feeling you might come, but I wasn't sure on Saturday with your kids if you'd have the chance. So I'm delighted you're here. So I've said a lot. Wow. I might have to take a break and sip some water. Okay, so I'm going to try to close things up here, but I have shared a lot, and I want to forewarn you or encourage you to not get too caught up in the story and the belief and the analysis of it, of like, you know, categorizing or labeling yourself through any of these hidden barriers. It's simply offering this up so that you can include all of these components in your awareness in a way that just feels good and supportive of whatever other inner work that you're doing. Because my intention in sharing kind of the backstory of what the symptoms in your life may be is to create space, to create possibility, to create openings, to create more options, and to create more choice, to liberate your energy to flow and move and expand in new ways. Versus when it's in the dark, it's in the shadows, and it's on default mode, and it's dormant while it's running the show, you're not going to feel at choice. You're going to feel victimized by it and powerless to change it. So you want to start to, as far as integrating everything I've shared, the next step is to, start to explore how to get beyond your upper limits, which has to do a lot with creating space within yourself to feel and appreciate natural good feelings that arise within you, and start to get curious. What are sort of my habitual ways of getting in my way, of short-circuiting and limiting and shrinking positive energy in myself and my life? And how willing are you to feel good and have life go well more of the time? And what would have to be true for me so that it is safe for me to get XYZ, like fill in any of the desires that you connected with yesterday? What would have to be true for you in order to allow yourself to have that, to receive that, and for that to be okay, for that to be safe? Remember what I said a few minutes ago, based on our core wounding and conditioning, getting what we wanted, feeling good, feeling okay, was not, for most of us, much of the time, was somehow posing a threat, either to ourselves or someone else. And if it posed it to someone else, that meant a threat to us as a little one. So you always have the option, when you choose to focus on it, to find some place in you and your life that feels good right now. And so your job, your task, is to allow those positive feelings to expand, to give them your attention more of the time. And then start to sustain it, kind of exercise that muscle of being able to sustain it for longer and longer periods of time. They talk about this in the field of positive psychology. One of my favorite words, it's this muscle of savoring. By extending your ability to feel positive feelings, to savor them, to allow them to grow and let them amplify within you, you expand your tolerance, your willingness, your availability for things to go well in your life more consistently and frequently. And as your capacity expands in one area, it, like in love, for example, then it will expand in all other areas: health, wealth, abundance, happiness, creativity, personal expression. So it's a muscle that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So that's what's beautiful, is you can pick the easiest area of your life where it feels the most accessible and maybe the least threatening, where you have the least amount of resistance to start pushing this envelope beyond your upper limiting default habits. So what else? Yeah, so like I was saying, back to where we started today's call, the energetics of magnetism. We chase experiences, we chase our goals, we chase our desires, we chase that someday when ultimate destination because of the feeling we believe it will give us. But it's really the other way around. The feeling is what will generate the experience, which will then reflect back to us the nature of that original feeling. And like I said in day one and probably day two, a woman in her joy, in her radiance, who's in love with herself and her life, hello, day one, day two, day three, and now day four, is a magnet to her desires. As long as she doesn't as long as she knows she has mastery to navigate these upper limits, these hidden barriers within her own system. Everything I've laid out today. So the more you do this practice, your abundance, your love, your capacity, your creativity expand, and then your tolerance for those grows. And that's at that point, the outer aspects of your life get to change and evolve and morph to match that expansion of pleasure and goodness inside of you. So hopefully you're seeing how the layering that we've been doing starting from day one is all coming together and liberating this mastery in you, liberating this potential in you. I should say liberating this potential in you and inspiring more mastery in you to navigate your life with this greater awareness. And again, this is sort of the finesse and the savviness and the poise and the mastery level work, because as you're getting to see, there's a lot that is at play when things aren't going the way we want them to go in our life, when we're not having the experience of ourselves in our lives that we want, and we're feeling that gap and we don't know how to bridge it. You can get a sense of the complexity here, which is why oftentimes it helps to have a mentor, it helps to have a coach to navigate those really subtle, nuanced pathways in our system and how we're interfacing with our life moment to moment. And all those points at which we have that choice but don't feel we have that choice to either expand or revert back into contraction. We are encountering those all day long, every day. And that's what's going to determine our level of magnetism, our level of radiance, our level of fulfillment. So, oh boy, I left a whole little section out. Let's see. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Deirdre. I know I didn't give you guys a lot of warning. So yeah, the replay will be here for you. I know it's super early, so I really invite you to just find a time to sit back, relax with a cup of tea, and start at the beginning. And I already said, I don't know if you were here yet or not, but Pamela was here, and I really, this video was super cognitive and cerebral, and lots of kind of a little more cerebral, a lot of information. So it's one that I suggest people listen to at least twice through and maybe take some notes for yourself. So yeah, so let me just finish. Maybe I'll just sip some water. Excuse me, ladies. Okay. I can feel my voice going. 45 minutes, 4 days in a row. Okay, so yeah, so this is what I'll leave you with. Like more of your home play is to start to get aware and cognizant of when it comes to magnetism and being a vibrational match to our desires, we want to get really familiar and aware of what proportion of your day are you actually in vibrational harmony with your desires. In other words, how much of your day are you happy, glad, eager, fulfilled, satisfied, in joy, in pleasure, in gratitude? Conversely, what percentage of your day are you feeling irritated? Are you in disappointment? Are you in disbelief? Are you in frustration? Are you in self-judgment or blame or victimization? So it's not that you have to get to 100% or even 90% or 80%, but if you could just start to raise that percentage little by little, 1% a day, closer to the happiness, the fulfillment, the believing in possibilities, that those more expanded, elevating, uplifting, inspiring feelings on any given day, that is what's going to have the significant movement. So baby steps at a time. All right. So anyone have any questions while I'm here? I know a couple of you popped in late, a couple of you popped out early, so you may not have questions yet. Totally understandable. Then I will circle back to revisit the thread once you've listened through and digested this very, very dense day 4. Dense day 4, that's what it was. All right, lovelies. Yeah, I would say you have plenty of home play. I would say this was a jam-packed audio, so I would just say your home play is to reflect. And I asked some questions to reflect on. You could do some journaling. Pick any entry point of what I shared today, journal it out, reflect it out, raise your awareness around these places that have been dormant, hiding in the background, but running the show. Because that self-awareness, that recognition is where your power and next level freedom lives. And then bring your questions. I am here for you. Love having you here with me live. And take your time, catch up on anything you've missed, and I will be back for day 5 tomorrow, which is all about redefining success. Another really, really fun, juicy, enlivening, empowering topic that we are going to dive into. You'll love it. It's really where we're going to bring all of this together, make it super practical and applicable so that you can integrate it on the go, on the fly, in your life in real time. So come join me for that. Wishing you a beautiful rest of your Saturday. Big kiss, big love. Bye, ladies.